Hello, first period history. Welcome to my closet. I'm recording this in the closet because it is the most soundproof room in my house, and my sister is currently learning how to play clarinet. It's not very good. My driving question was, how did the American Revolution lead to the invention of the submarine? Now, that question was a little difficult to answer. Not really, though, because there's no like defined answer. It just kind of like happened. So let's start out at the very beginning. Let's start with David Bushnell. Hold on. Give me some. David Bushnell was a farm boy born in Connecticut, 1740. His dad died in 1769, so he was all left with his family and his farm. But when he got a little bit older, like in his 30s or so, he sold his share of his farm to enroll in Yale University. And while he was in Yale, he started working on nautical bombs and underwater vehicle stuff. He taught himself how to build bombs that would work underwater, and they were timed. They're pretty cool. After he graduated Yale, which I don't think I wrote that down, so I don't remember. He started working on the now known American turtle. He began working on this thing as early as like 1771, so he's been working on this thing for a while, and then he enrolled in whatever the Americans were called, like whatever, the Yankees. In order to complete this project, the turtle, he needed some funding. He needed like support from people. So he went to the big dogs, right? He went to George Washington himself. He was just like, "Hey, I can help you if you help me. If you give me the money and the funds to build this thing, we can get the jump on the British boys and win." It's late 1775. The British are occupying Boston, and Bushnell really wanted to help. So on a test run, I put quotations here because it wasn't really a test run. He went and did a test run on the biggest ship that the British had. It was a 64 gun ship called the Eagle. And fair enough. I mean, I can kind of see why he did the test run on it, because if he did a test run on a smaller ship, they could have possibly found out about it, and then they wouldn't have like the element of surprise anymore. But it's still not really a test run. So let's get into this turtle a little bit. Let's like see how it works. I'll put like pictures and stuff up. There was it was like a couple years back, like recreation of the turtle. Hopefully there's more recent like pictures of it. Maybe I could find pictures from there. The turtle, obviously it was a submarine, so it would operate below the water's surface. In Mr. Bushnell's letter to Thomas Jefferson, he explained how the submarine looked and worked. So everything that you hear here, English is such a stupid language. Everything that you hear here is written by David Bushnell. He describes it as egg-shaped, or two turtle shells put together and bound with iron bands. This thing is actually like very well built for this time. It even had its own compass and its own depth gauge in it. And because the submarine would be used at night and under the water, it's going to be dark. So he covered the needle of the compass in this fungus that would glow in the dark. So whoever's piloting can actually see what direction they're facing or how deep they are. Let me explain a little bit what the depth gauge was. So it was basically this glass tube, right, that was stuck to the front or the side. I can't remember which part it was. I don't think it was specifically said, but it was stuck to the turtle on the inside, and the tube would fill up with water, and then there was a cork in the water, and as you got lower, the cork would rise, showing that you went deeper in the water. Let's talk more about the balancing and maneuverability of this thing. So obviously, it wasn't very maneuverable. Submarines today aren't even like very maneuverable. What he used to propel this thing was two propellers, two like two like screw propellers, which he had hand cranks or foot pedals to control with. That would help. There was one placed at the top to help it with submerging, and then there was one place at the front to help it move forward and backwards. So how this thing submerged, it wasn't only the propeller, because if it were just the propeller, that would be like impossible. You'd just be sitting there cranking all the time and you wouldn't do anything. So what Bushnell did is he had these chambers at the bottom of the submarine, and when you like flicked a certain lever or pushed a certain pedal, it would fill up with water, and the more water it filled up with, obviously the lower you sank. There's also a hand pump to pump out the water for when you ascend. Back to this test run, Mr. Bushnell's brother Ezra Lee would be the pilot for this. It was like midnight, it was dark, it was cold. He got towed out by two boats, and then once they got close enough without being spotted, they just let it go in the water, and Ezra would continue on his path. He followed on the surface for a little while, just floating around, and then when he got eventually close enough, he would submerge. And then he would go under the ship and attempt to attach the bomb to the thing. But this miserably failed. He tried multiple times. The first time, the screw mechanism wasn't working. And the second time, my man's screw like bounced off of it. And then the third time, he tried to screw it in. Everything was working perfectly. It looked like this would be the one. But then he hit a metal bar from a rudder hinge from the boat, and it wouldn't fasten. So now by this time the sun was rising. Ezra was getting worried. So what he decided to do, he decided to give up. There's your history project, right? I don't know how to make an outro for this, so goodbye.